Russia knows exactly where every American soldier in the Gulf is right now, every base, every ship, every command post, and they are giving those coordinates in real time to Iran. 7 Americans are already dead because of it, and the Pentagon's official response? Russia is not really a factor here. Here's what's actually happening and why it changes everything. There is a version of this war that the Pentagon briefed to Congress on day 3. In that version, America is fighting Iran, a regional power, a country with no aircraft carriers, no stealth jets, no global satellite network, a country whose navy was largely sunk in the first 72 hours, whose air force was effectively grounded, whose command infrastructure was struck repeatedly and precisely by B-2 bombers. Flying from Diego Garcia. In that version, this should have been over by now. It is not over. It is not close to over. And the real reason, the one that the Pentagon has spent 30 days trying to downplay, minimize, and talk around is that America is not fighting Iran. America is fighting Iran plus Russia's satellite, constellation plus China's navigation, architecture plus a global supply chain that routes through Shenzhen and cannot be legally interdicted without opening a war on 2 new fronts simultaneously. Washington Post was first to report it, confirmed by 3 officials with direct knowledge. Russia is providing Iran with targeting information to attack American forces in the Middle East, the first indication that another major U.S. adversary is participating, even indirectly, in the war. That sentence deserves to sit in silence. For a moment, Russia is targeting American soldiers. Not with Russian weapons, not with Russian troops, with Russian intelligence delivered to Iranian commanders, loaded into Iranian targeting systems, used to guide Iranian missiles and drones toward American bases, American ships, American personnel. Much of the intelligence Russia has shared with Iran has been imagery from Moscow's sophisticated constellation of overhead satellites. It is not clear what Russia is getting in return for the assistance. Actually, that last sentence is wrong. It is perfectly clear what Russia is getting, and understanding that is the key to understanding the entire strategic architecture of this war. Moscow's calculus is not hard to read. Intelligence is a currency. Putin is simply spending it. As former CIA officer Bruce Riedel once observed, in modern warfare, coordinates are often more valuable than bullets. Whoever knows where the enemy is wins. That axiom is now playing out in real time across the Gulf. Think about what Putin has watched over the last 4 years of the Ukraine war. He has watched the United States supply Kyiv with targeting intelligence used to strike Russian positions, including, reportedly, locations near Putin's own residences. He has watched American satellite data flow into Ukrainian fire control systems, guiding HIMARS rockets onto Russian ammunition depots, headquarters buildings, and command nodes with precision that Russian forces could not achieve or defend against. Putin spent 4 years being on the receiving end of American intelligence-enabled precision warfare. He understands exactly what it does to a military that lacks comparable situational awareness. And now he has a chance to give that same experience to someone currently fighting America at zero cost to himself, with 0 Russian fingerprints on any individual strike, with complete deniability, and with the added benefit of watching the United States consume billions of dollars in interceptor missiles every week. Russia's role in the war focused on intelligence sharing and logistical aid, avoiding direct combat to prevent straining its resources amid the Ukraine conflict. U.S. officials reported that Moscow supplied Iran with real-time data on American warships and aircraft, enabling more precise retaliatory strikes. This assistance included satellite feeds from Russian assets, which helped Iran monitor U.S. movements in the Middle East. Russia has been helping Tehran improve its drone employment tactics, supplying Iran with targeting intelligence on U.S. troops, warships, and aircraft. This would not be the first time Moscow has abetted attacks on U.S. interests in 2024. Russia reportedly provided targeting data to Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen to help the organization attack ships in the Red Sea. This is not improvised opportunism. This is a practice playbook. Here is where the analysis gets precise and uncomfortable. The Iranian aerial attacks appear to be more precise than in the 12-day war between Iran and Israel in June 2025, and more focused on radar sites and communication posts in particular. The types of targets Iran appears to be aiming for, sometimes successfully, suggest Tehran is receiving enhanced intelligence. They appear to be going after command and control for U.S. forces. Command and control, radar installations, communication posts. These are not random targets of opportunity. These are the specific nodes that, if destroyed, blind American air defenses and sever the communications links between commanders and the forces they are directing. Iran on its own, with its own limited reconnaissance satellite constellation, could not identify these targets with sufficient precision to hit them reliably. Iran, operating with Russian satellite feeds and Chinese electronic intelligence support, absolutely can. Iran's strike packages increasingly resemble Russian operational patterns observed in Ukraine, including drone swarms used to saturate air defenses, followed by precision missile strikes against critical military nodes. Read that again. Iranian operations now resemble Russian operations in Ukraine. The doctrine, the sequencing, the targeting logic, all of it transferred. Russia didn't just give Iran satellite coordinates. It gave Iran 4 years of hard-won lessons about how to systematically degrade a technologically superior opponent's air defense architecture using a combination of cheap mass and expensive precision. The consequences for American forces are tangible and deadly. 6 U.S. service members were killed March 1st during an Iranian drone attack on a base in Kuwait. At least 10 other troops were severely wounded in operations across the region. The alleged Russian assistance is alarming because it would enable Iranians to target specific locations with ballistic missiles and drones, putting U.S. service members at risk. 6 soldiers from Des Moines, Iowa, dead, partly because Russian satellites told Iranian drones where to go. When asked about Russian intelligence assistance to Iran, Trump called the question stupid. "That's an easy problem compared to what we're doing here," the president said. "What a stupid question that is to be asking at this time." White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt did not deny the report, instead saying it didn't matter, because the U.S. was still winning the war. It clearly is not making a difference with respect to the military operations in Iran because we are completely decimating them. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told CBS News that we're tracking everything. He added, "Russia and China are not really a factor here. Not really a factor." That is the official position of the United States Secretary of Defense, offered on the same week that Russian satellite imagery was guiding Iranian strikes onto American command and control nodes, and Chinese navigation systems were making Iranian drones harder to jam. The political logic of this denial is understandable. Acknowledging that Russia is actively targeting American personnel even indirectly creates enormous pressure to respond. And responding to Russia means opening a third front in a war that is already straining American resources, ammunition stockpiles, alliance relationships, and domestic political support simultaneously. But the military logic of the denial is catastrophically flawed. You cannot defend against a threat you refuse to officially acknowledge. You cannot brief allies, adjust tactics, or request additional authorities for a threat your own Secretary of Defense has dismissed as irrelevant. Analysts described Russia's contributions as enabling Iran to sustain its defenses without escalating to a broader confrontation involving the Kremlin, that is the genius of the design. Russia gets maximum strategic benefit, degraded American military capability, depleted American munitions stocks, strained American alliances while maintaining complete plausible deniability. No Russian soldiers are dying. No Russian aircraft are flying. No Russian ships are in the Gulf. Russia is winning a war it officially has no part in. If Russia's contribution is a scalpel precise, targeted intelligence that guides specific strikes, China's contribution is the entire operating system. Iranian UAVs, such as the Shahd series, rely on an ecosystem of imported electronics, engines, navigation components, batteries, and semiconductors. While many of these parts originate in the United States, Europe, and Japan, procurement networks frequently route them through Chinese distributors or trading companies before they reach Iranian manufacturers. In 2021, China gave Iran access to Baidu, the global positioning satellite system owned and operated by the China National Space Administration. Since the start of the war, Iran has used Baidu to produce decoy signals to confuse threat analysis and conceal actual Iranian military movements. This is the piece that changes the entire calculation. American air defense systems Patriot, THAAD, SM-3, SM-6 were designed and optimized to operate in an environment where Iranian missiles and drones use GPS for navigation. American electronic warfare assets can jam GPS, they can spoof GPS signals, they can degrade GPS-dependent guidance systems to the point where weapons miss their targets by hundreds of meters, but Iranian weapons are no longer using GPS. China has significantly contributed intelligence support, satellite navigation, radar systems, and electronic warfare technologies that augment Iran's targeting capabilities. Advanced electronic warfare support could help Iran fight back against Western GPS jamming, keep missile guidance signals from being blocked, and disrupt enemy radar systems during military operations. Al Jazeera has speculated that the Iranians may be integrating China's Baidu navigation system on their drones. If that is the case, it explains why the Iranian drones have become so lethal. The United States can disable Baidu, but doing so would represent a significant escalation in any potential conflict with China, an escalation that could draw in many other countries that rely on Baidu for important civilian functions. There it is, the trap within the trap. To neutralize Chinese navigation technology in Iranian weapons, America would need to attack the Baidu satellite constellation, an act of war against China itself. To stop Chinese drone components from reaching Iran by sea, America would need to intercept Chinese vessels, an act that opens a direct military confrontation with the world's second-largest navy. To sanction China's electronics exporters effectively would require severing economic relationships that underpin trillions of dollars of global trade. Every counter to China's contribution to this war costs America something it cannot afford to spend right now. The intelligence architecture is only part of the picture. There is also the matter of what China physically transferred to Iran before and during this war. According to Global Defense, China already sent Iran 50 CM-302 anti-ship missiles, 6 HQ-16B surface-to-air missiles, 1,200 FN-6 man-portable air defense systems, 300 Sunflower 200 kamikaze drones, 3 HQ-9B anti-ballistic missile systems, and 50 HQ-9 anti-satellite missiles. The reported package was worth $5 billion. A $5 billion weapons package, delivered, quietly, via oil for weapons arrangements that bypass the dollar-denominated financial system and are therefore largely immune to American sanctions pressure. China deployed vessels to the region capable of tracking the U.S. fleet and providing targeting data for Iranian operations. Chinese companies have published satellite images of U.S. military assets in the region, Chinese naval vessels in the Persian Gulf, tracking American carrier strike groups and feeding that tracking data into Iranian targeting chains. Moscow and Beijing have transitioned from diplomatic allies to technological anchors, providing Iran with advanced tests for OO air defenses, Su-35 fighters, and Baidu-3 navigation to negate Western stealth and jamming capabilities. The Yilkate-B anti-stealth radar, a Chinese-supplied UHF band system, uses low-frequency waves specifically designed to reduce the effectiveness of radar-absorbent coatings. The B-21 Raider and the F-35C were engineered to be invisible. China has done more than shave minutes off Iranian detection time. It has reshaped the entire kill chain. America's most advanced stealth aircraft, the centerpiece of its air campaign, are flying into an electromagnetic environment that Chinese engineers specifically designed to find them. Trump administration officials told lawmakers during a closed-door briefing on Capitol Hill that Iran's shot attack drones represent a major challenge, and U.S. air defenses will not be able to intercept them all. Defense Secretary Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs acknowledged the drones are posing a bigger problem than anticipated. Senator Mark Kelly warned that we do not have an unlimited supply of interceptors. The Iranians do have the ability to make a lot of Shahd drones, ballistic missiles, medium range, short range, and they've got a huge stockpile. So at some point this becomes a math problem. How can we resupply air defense munitions? A Shahd drone costs $50,000. A Patriot interceptor costs $4 million. China is watching the Iran war and doing the math. The Pentagon still doesn't have an answer. One Patriot missile costs 80 Shahd drones. Iran, with Chinese components flowing through supply chains that the U.S. Navy is monitoring but cannot legally stop, can sustain drone production indefinitely. America's interceptor stockpiles are finite, replenishment takes months, and every successful Iranian drone strike that gets through represents a $50,000 weapon, defeating a layer of defense that costs the American taxpayer orders of magnitude more. The Gulf is becoming the first theater where electronic warfare may prove more decisive than conventional firepower. Alliances are being redrawn not by troop deployments or treaty signings, but by intelligence flows and satellite constellations. If Russia and China fail to move beyond technology transfers to active deterrence, they risk a credibility deficit that could signal the failure of the multipolar world order and alienate potential partners in the global south. Neither can afford to let Tehran fall. An Iranian collapse would represent a definitive checkmate against the Eurasian land bridge. Consequently, we are approaching a credibility floor. To maintain their status as viable counterweights to the West, Moscow and Beijing must eventually bridge the gap between enabling Iranian resistance and actively safeguarding it. This is the most important analytical sentence in this entire assessment, and it deserves to be read slowly. Russia and China have invested enough in Iran's survival that Iran's collapse would damage their own credibility as security partners. Every country in the global south that is watching this war, every government that is considering whether to align with the American-led order or the emerging Russian-Chinese alternative, is watching whether Moscow and Beijing will let a partner get destroyed when it matters most. If they do nothing and Iran falls, their entire pitch as alternative security providers is hollow. The multipolar world order they have been advertising for a decade is exposed as a transaction without a guarantee. So the pressure to do more will grow as the war continues. The current level of support, intelligence, navigation, components is a floor, not a ceiling. Iranian advisors claim the support positioned Beijing and Moscow as winners in a shifting global order. The conflict tested the durability of the axis among the three nations, revealing pragmatic boundaries to their cooperation. Those boundaries are being tested right now, and as American military pressure on Iran intensifies. As talk of Karg Island seizures and ground operations fills the briefing rooms, those boundaries may shift. Strip away the headline numbers, the sorties flown, the targets struck, the ships sunk, and the structure of this conflict is clear. America launched a war against one country. It is fighting three. Russia is providing the EYES satellite imagery, real-time tracking, the precise coordinates that turn Iranian missiles from area weapons into precision-guided munitions aimed at American command nodes. China is providing the nervous system navigation that cannot be jammed, radar that detects stealth aircraft, electronics that keep the Iranian drone program running regardless of sanctions, and naval vessels that track American carriers from international waters. Iran is providing the bodies, the geography, and the willingness to absorb punishment in exchange for the strategic disruption that Russia and China need but cannot openly deliver themselves. China is not arming Tehran out of ideological solidarity. It is treating the conflict as a live-fire laboratory, every potential anti-ship missile engagement against a U.S. carrier strike group can generate targeting and intercept data that Beijing's military planners will study exhaustively, refining doctrine for the one scenario China actually cares about: Taiwan. This war is not just about Iran's nuclear program or oil prices or the Strait of Hormuz. It is a live test of the military architecture that will determine who controls the next 50 years of global order. Russia is collecting data on American electronic warfare capabilities. China is refining its anti-carrier doctrine. Iran is discovering which American defense systems can be saturated, which can be jammed, and which can be defeated with a $50,000 drone. And America is burning through interceptor missiles, straining alliances, spending $891 million a day, and officially insisting that none of this is really happening. The war inside the war is the one that matters most, and right now, America doesn't officially acknowledge it exists.